The theme for the month, and thank you for acknowledging it in your opening song so beautifully, recapturing the light. And today, the topic is the urgency to shine. Are you feeling an urgency within yourself? You feeling an urgency to shine your light, to live your vision, to be your greatest yet to be? This is what it's about today. You see, the world is urgent. That's what kept coming to me, because the world urgently needs us. Because the world is in quite a state of disrepair, we might say, right? With everything going on. No matter what your political viewpoint is, no matter what, it's just there's a lot up, Where it's like all of the dark places right now in our country and in the world are showing up, and they're showing up to be healed. Just like in our individual consciousness, things show up to be healed. Those of you who do a lot of spiritual practice know this, especially when you set a deep intention and you affirm something, and then you notice, wait a minute, why is all this stuff coming up? I set my deep intention. I'm supposed to experience abundance. I'm supposed to experience harmonious relationships. I'm supposed to experience, and what comes up is everything unlike it, so that those dark places within ourselves, that shadow side, can be healed. And so we're here as a spiritual community to support each other, just to lift ourselves up, to explore those shadow places, and to know that we are more than that. I am more than that. We are more than any circumstance. We can live independently of any circumstance in our life. We can live independently of any circumstance in the world. And I know that sometimes we get pulled by the world, don't we? We get pulled by what we see happening in the world. There was another school shooting this past week by a teenager, We get pulled, my heart cracks open every time that something like that happens, We're pulled by COVID and all the stuff going on, how that's been such a political thing. We're pulled by all of the isms, the oppressions that happen to this day that seem like they shouldn't be happening anymore. And so it's time to shine our light, because we know that form follows consciousness. That's one of our basic teachings, that's one of our basic spiritual principles. Form follows consciousness. That when we know something deep within our consciousness, that a form has to follow it. It has to follow in the same vibration of the consciousness. So when we look at the world, when we look at our own individual lives, we can kind of get a clue as to what's going on in consciousness, right? And that's not, I don't say that from a judgmental place. We all have stuff to heal. The world has stuff to heal. And for a time such as this, we have come. I'm real keenly aware right now that this is the last day of Hanukkah. And so I want to acknowledge that it is the last day of Hanukkah. Last Sunday, Reverend Cindy did a beautiful, and Annalisa did a beautiful Hanukkah first day blessing, and it was lovely. And Hanukkah is just another one of those traditions that reminds us, shine the light. Winter solstice happens this month. Shine the light. Christmas happens this month. Shine the light. It's all about that. And interestingly enough, that it's in the midst of the darkest time of the year that these celebrations happen, and they happen specifically because it is the darkest time of the year. It's the time when we can see the light. The darkness and the light are contrasted so beautifully, I was reading somewhere that, the darkness doesn't diminish the light. The darkness defines the light. Think about that. The darkness defines the light. And so we're here to shine. Jesus the Christ, again, I kind of slaughtered his quotation at the beginning, that, it said, let your light so shine before men and women, that God is glorified, that the Spirit is glorified. And what we know in our teaching is that the Spirit is, yes, it's transcendent, and it's also immanent. It's within us. So it's not something outside. So there's an urgency here that's happening, and I've been feeling it really strongly. And the question is, what's the key? To not saving the world, as Reverend Michael says, not saving it, but what's the key to transforming it? To be an agent of transformation. To be that agent of transformation, because as each of us transforms and becomes one, more and more and more of the love and the oneness and the peace, the justice of all those things we want, as we become it more and more and more, form changes. And when there's, do you remember years ago there was a big talk about the critical mass? Any of you Remember that? You know? And it's still true that when there are enough people in that consciousness, in that frequency, in that vibration, then things change. And so we're committed to be that. In this community, we're committed to be that. So we come here for ourselves, we come here for the world. So, you know, the word, when I came across the word key in my consciousness, what's the key here? I was reminded of a story about the Mullah Nasruddin. Any of you know about Mullah Nasruddin? Mullah Nasruddin, supposedly he was born in Persia, the area of Iran, and this was in about the 13th century. Some people say he never even was a real person, but whether he was or not doesn't matter. But it's a story about him. And he was known as the wise fool, the mystic, the wise fool. And so the story goes like this. So he's out looking for something outside where the street lights are, the street lamps, where they powered those were in the 13th century. He was outside and looking. And so his neighbors, who were really willing and happy to be of assistance, started looking with him. And then they're like, well, what are we looking for? And he said, well, my key. I lost my key. So we're looking for my key. And they said, well, where did you have it last? He said, oh, in the house. They said, well, then why are you outside here looking for your key? And he said, because this is where the light is. So, it's a silly story, but, you know. And that can be taken a couple of different ways. And the way I want to take it today is that house, metaphysically and mystically, house represents consciousness. So when we're talking about the house, we're talking about consciousness. So the key is in the consciousness. You get that? The key is in the consciousness. So he goes out, he's looking for the light somewhere else where the light is real obvious. And of course there's some light in the house too, it's just not as obvious. So the question then, the question is, so you know, do I look for the light? Do I see the light only where it's so obvious? Or can I see the light in those darker places? Can I see the light in the house where perhaps it's not as obvious? Is that making sense to you?
Yeah.
So what we're called to do is we are called to see the light in the midst of everything going on in the world. The question came up in practitioner class on Thursday, and this is a powerful class. Many of the students are in here right now. It's a powerful class. But that question came up, how do I be that? You know? How do I be that place in consciousness, whether I'm with someone else and then I'm at it, whether I'm in the world, when things are confronting me? Perhaps I'm in the midst of a political rally. Maybe some of us like to, you know, are called to participate in that. And it goes a little bit awry, or there's a lot of sense of separation. How do I be the light in the midst of that? How do I be the light in the midst of everything going on in my own life? How do I be the light when I hurt my leg, you know? How do I be the light when I'm experiencing financial lack? How do I be the light then? How do I be the light in the face of everything happening on the planet? And how I be the light, how I be the light, how I be the light is through my spiritual practice. You see, I'm called to be the oneness. I'm called to be the love. I'm called to be the light. I'm called to be the peace. I'm called to be the joy. How can you be joy in the midst of what's going on in the world? It's a divine quality. Joy is a divine quality. And there's nothing wrong with feeling joyful even in the midst of difficult situations. Even in the, in fact, you know, some of it, as a minister, I work with a lot of families that are grieving. And lots of times, in fact, I would say most of the time, there's joy mingled in. There's the joy of remembrance. There's the joy of, oh, look at all the silly things this person did, or the funny things this person did, or, you know, in the midst of anything and everything, we can feel joy because it's not something we look for on the outside. Our happiness is not in the outside of us. It's within us. So all of these qualities are within us already. And what we need to do is activate them. That's what we're called to do. I won't say need to, because you have choice. You know, one of the basic teachings for us is choice. We have the power of choice. Everybody does. There's free will, so we can choose. I can choose how I want to respond. I can't always choose what's happening in my life, you know, but I can choose how I respond. And so I can choose, am I going to be that place of oneness in the midst of everything going on? Can I be the person that speaks up when there's a conversation going on that's putting other people down, that perhaps is homophobic or racist or whatever? Can I be the light? Can I have the strength and the courage to stand up and say something? And it's a growing process. We're all growing into it, right? And I know because you're here that that's your soul's calling, that you are here to be the light. So what we want to do is we want to get in touch, first of all, with our own vision. What's my purpose here on this earth plane? What's my purpose? What am I called here to be? What am I called here to do? And what you're called here to do comes out of what you're called here to be, right? It even emerges from what you're called here to be. So most of us, when we're children, have an inkling about that. We kind of have a sense of why we're here. I was real clear as a young child, that I was here to serve God. I was very clear about that. And then my life took twists and turns, and there were times when perhaps I forgot that a little bit. But then coming back to it, what's that? What, as a child, what was that thing, that just gave you joy? It gave me joy to think about that. Many of you know that I was a nun for 9 years. I was in a Roman Catholic convent for 9 years. And when I was a little kid, wanting to serve God, I remember getting out of the bathtub one day and putting the towel over my head like I was pretending to be a nun. And that was the outer form. But see, the inner calling, the outer form has changed because forms always change. The inner calling has remained the same. What's your inner calling? What's that primary desire of your heart? That when you're doing that, when you're thinking about it, when you're being it, it gives you joy. Because we aren't here, yes, pain happens in our lives, and we are here to bring joy. We're here to bring transformation. We're here to bring peace. We're here to bring love. To stand in that, in the midst of anything and everything. So first of all, I say, reconnect with your vision, with your purpose. What's your purpose for being here? Are you, and then for me, that's more, into serving spirit. It's more into being an agent of transformation for the world. It's morphed into diving into the mystic consciousness. It's morphed into other things. How is your purpose morphing? What are you here to do? Because when you are strong in your purpose, you know what you're here to do, you focus on it, you're interested in it, you pay attention to it, opportunities are going to come your way. Because you see where our interest is and where our attention is. Life is going to mirror that. Life is going to reflect that to us. Spirit is going to mirror that, reflect that to us. And it's going to bring us opportunities. So it's like, get in touch with the vision. Be open and receptive. What are the opportunities to shine that are coming my way? Maybe your opportunities, maybe you notice, I've been working with someone recently who has just had loads of transitions, lots of deaths in her family. Over the 4 or 5 years I've been working with her, it's almost every month someone she knows and is close to has transitioned. There's something in that, There's something in that. There's a calling in that. What's happening over and over and over again? That you are called to be the light in a certain situation, and that these situations keep happening. Take a breath for a moment. Sometimes you have to remember to breathe because the stuff just kind of, So, we're here to be a particular consciousness. And as we're being that, I'm just synthesizing here, as we're being that, as we're living our purpose, then form is going to follow. I can't even begin to tell you all the ways in my life personally, how as my consciousness has shifted, as I've known more of truth, and when I'm talking truth, I'm not talking about facts. I'm talking about capital R reality. Those principles that never, ever, ever change. As I anchor in those things, then I just move through situations. I used to have a lot of challenge with what one might call the consciousness of prosperity or abundance. Had a lot of challenges with that. And what I did, and here's what you can do too, any area you're having a challenge with, I let that be the very thing that brought me to a deeper realization of spirit. I let that be the very thing that called me deeper. So how it called me was that I was to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that spirit is the source and the supply of everything. Spirit's the source, the supply of everything, no matter what. You see? And then how I worked with that was, and spirit is my life. I'm made in the spiritual image and likeness of the divine. It's my life, And so if it's my life, my source is within me. I don't have to look outside for anything. And it's the same relationships. Love is what that's all about. It's already within. We don't have to look for it in a relationship. We get to cultivate it within ourselves and be the love within ourselves. Love ourselves, be in right relationship with ourselves, which is the divine self. And then our relationships start to harmonize. And of course, as I said earlier, before that happens, sometimes everything unlike it might come up. You just know that's proof you're doing your spiritual practice. When the everything unlike it's coming up, that's proof. Okay, I'm doing my spiritual practice. And that's why we have practitioners, and that's why we have prayer partners, and that's why we have classes, is to remind us of those truths, always. And then we get stronger and stronger and stronger. So find your purpose, be your purpose. The other thing I would say, be awake and aware. Notice what's going on around you. Notice what people around you are thinking. Tune in, or feeling. Tune in to the vibration of somebody. Oftentimes we hear the words somebody says, but we don't get who they truly are. Tune into that, And then no matter what's happening with that individual, let's say that individual comes to you and they've had a diagnosis of a terminal illness. Instead of getting thrown way off, you'll be a place of love. You'll be a place of knowing, this person is more than this. You don't say it, by the way, because you don't want to deny anybody's experience. But what you do is you know it within yourself, and you shine that light upon that person. And if you feel it's a good thing to do, you ask, do you want prayer? Do you want me to pray for you? And then you do that prayer. That's the way of standing strong in the midst of this. What I was asked in class, or we were asked in class, because it's always for the whole group, was, how do I keep my own vibration? How do I stay in my own frequency? When I feel other frequencies starting to come in. And that can happen in the world. As we see world events, we can start to take on those frequencies. We can start to take on troubles. We can start to take on vibrations. And what I would say to that, be awake, be aware, be grounded. Be grounded, Be grounded to Mother Earth with your consciousness in the highest heaven. Be in your body, feel your feelings, and know, in the midst of that, I am more than these feelings even. I am the very presence of the divine. I'm here to shine my light. I'm here not to save the world, but to serve what wants to happen next. When Reverend Michael talks about the emerging paradigm, he's talking about the paradigm of love, of joy, of peace, of unity, of beauty, of abundance. That's the emerging paradigm. That's what wants to happen. All this stuff is up because it's time to heal these things. It's time to shine our light. The urgency, shine the light. Be the light. Live the light. Speak up when you need to speak up. Be quiet and listen when you need to be quiet and listen. Some of us are good at talking, but not so good at listening. Some of us are real good at listening, but then we don't talk, And so it's like, get an imbalance here. And I have to say, in the midst of all of this, what I have discovered in my life is I really can't make anything change, even my own consciousness. Spirit does that. What I have to do is my inner practice. I have to do my daily meditation. I have to do my daily prayer work. I have to vision. I have to do my visioning. I have to stay in touch with that. I have to practice the presence. Remember spirit all day long. These are the spiritual practices. And as we practice, I guarantee you that you'll start to notice you respond differently in your life. I guarantee you, you will start to respond in a different way. And you'll notice that. But you know, if you try to will it, it doesn't work. But then you try willing things. It's kind of a form of control, you know. I can't even control my own consciousness, but what I can do is I can create an environment in my consciousness of prayer, of meditation, of vision, of love, of peace. I can create that environment, and then I watch as Spirit does its thing. And it's pretty amazing, the Spirit does its thing. Pretty amazing to watch. Now I'm accustomed to it, so it's almost like, oh yeah, of course, Spirit's doing that. And I got to remember to be amazed, because it is amazing, you see. It is amazing. And then the other thing I would say is just keep focusing. You can only focus on one thing. Focus on oneness. Focus on oneness. And no matter what's going on, see it everywhere. See it in everyone. You know, see it in that 15-year-old boy who shot his classmates in the future. See it in people who are oppressing other people. That's hard. Right? That's not quite so easy. But that's what we're called to do, is to see the oneness there. There too is that one life. It's not just for a few, it's for everybody. Everybody is that one. Everybody is Spirit in form. And so that's a powerful practice. If you don't do anything else, do that. And you will be practicing the presence all day long. Because everything you see, every thought you have, even when you're thinking of your own thoughts, you might think, my thoughts don't matter. Oh, yes, they do. How am I thinking about this person? Am I judging? Am I seeing otherness? Am I getting into a fearful place? I get to notice that. And then I get to come back to what I know to be true. Oneness, oneness, oneness. There's only one of us here. And it's the very presence, and the very power, and the very life of God, of Spirit, of whatever the Christ, Yahweh, you know, the Buddha consciousness, the Messiah, whatever we want to call this one, you know, this one. That's who and what we are. It wasn't just in the innumerable ones. It's in you. The light is in you, and it's begging you. Let me out, let me out, let me out, you know. Let me shine. And then it shows you what you're here to do. It will show you that. Because one of the many things that you might hear sometimes is that, well, yeah, we have these practices and a lot of it's very receptive, but what are we doing? You'll know what to do. It's not just about sitting back and waiting for life to come to you. It will present you with so many opportunities. You know, in the midst of COVID, you will not even believe some of the things that I get to hear and hear over and over and over again, you know, and it's not easy to hear. And I need to shine the light there. I need to see the oneness there. So I want to come back and kind of wrap this up. The key is in the house. The key is in the house. Bring your light to the house. Bring your light to it. Don't wait for someone else's light. Don't go outside for the light. Bring your light into the house of consciousness. And that consciousness is your consciousness. And then when you're doing it in your consciousness, you're affecting the collective consciousness. When you're feeling fear or separation, remember, just remember, this isn't true. This isn't true. Oneness is true. I am more than that which I'm fearing at the moment. I am more than that which is looking like division and separation. I am more than this experience that I'm having. I am more than this. You know, Brother Michael and Ricky wrote that song, and the chorus of it is, I am more than this. You know, the pain of the body, I am more than this. The loss of a loved one, I am more than this. Whatever's happening, I am more than this. And remember, what you put after those two words, I am, is powerful. It's absolutely powerful. So, you know, what are you then? What's your I am statement? In fact, let's take a minute. Just go with it for a second. What's your I am statement that you would make right here, right now? Don't think in your head, open your heart. So my I am statement at this moment, and it changes sometimes, my statement this moment is, I am compassion. What's yours? Speak it out right now.
I am love.
Beautiful. Now say it with more conviction.
I am love.
All right. One more time, louder even.
I am love.
And feel it now. Just feel that. Even though we all said something different, feel that consciousness of I am within you. I am. And then ultimately, of course, God defines itself as I am that I am. Powerful word. I am love, that I am. I am peace, that I am. I am courage, that I am. I am strength, that I am. Whatever it is. Powerful, powerful, powerful. So, mind your consciousness. Know that the key is there. And the key to the collective transformation, the collective rising of all these beautiful qualities in the world, that key is in the consciousness of the world. So that consciousness needs to change in order for a different outcome, right? And as we change, the world changes. We may not be able to go out and do something to make it all happen at once. That's what people say. They say, well, I can't really do a lot. Yes, you can. Here's the thing. People hear it, but they don't really get it. Sometimes I have to remind myself. Consciousness is the most powerful thing in the world. It's the most powerful thing in the world. Because that's where everything starts. It creates form. It's the power. Not the stuff in the world. Not the stuff in the world. But that consciousness, the one spirit. Is consciousness is awareness, consciousness is spirit. So with that, I would say shine your light. Shine it urgently. The world needs you. So shine on. Be it. Be who you are intended to be on this earth plane. Live your dream. Live your vision. And know that life supports you in that. And that you are supported here in Agape area in that. We support you. We love you. When we say that blessing at the beginning, it's not idle words. We love you, we appreciate you, we bless you, we support you in being your greatest yet to be. And in doing that, we support the transformation, the awakening of the planet in a new way. We support the emerging paradigm. And that being said, we're going to move into prayer now.